What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. How's everybody doing? Grab that coffee. I basically spent the entire morning working on Shadow Priest. We're going to talk about Shadow Priest today. This has been a pretty big shift. There's been a lot of changes for Shadow Priest compared to from Shadowlands into Dragonflight. I spent a lot of time working on this, trying to figure out kind of what builds are cool and what build I wanted to try and showcase for you guys today. So, in particular, of course, the biggest change that's coming for Shadow Priest is the removal of Searing Nightmare, which I think most people hated anyway. And that was, of course, when you were channeling Mindseer, when you're channeling Mindseer, your AoE ability, you can just press Searing Nightmare and it adds Shadow Word Pain to everybody nearby. So that was something that was sort of like required in Mythic Plus, and it became a frustrating playstyle, I think, that most Shadow Priests didn't really appreciate, didn't really want to have to do. So Blizzard has removed it. They've gotten rid of it, and they've really added in several different ways that you can accomplish your AoE rotation now. So it used to be up here, Searing Nightmare, and it used to share a node with Misery, which, of course, Vampiric Touch will add Shadow Word Pain to a target. Of course, everybody understands what playing with Misery feels like. Now, what they've added in the place of Searing Nightmare is basically Searing Nightmare, but in a different button form. It's called Dark Void. So instead of having to channel Mindseer, in order to use Searing Nightmare, now you can just press Dark Void every 30 seconds, and it unleashes an explosion, and it deals 300 damage, and then it applies Shadow Word Pain to 8 targets. Your target plus 7. That's 8 targets. So it also generates 20 insanity, which is very strong. So it's a good replacement, because you don't have to stand there and channel Mindseer, which, as we know, in almost any Mythic Plus dungeon, standing still is usually not an option. And in particular, all the Dragonflight dungeons, from what I've seen, there's not really an option to stand still. So you have this as a choice now for you. What's going on here? What's happening over here? Disaster. Okay, so this is a choice. You can do that. Or you could pick Misery. And you might say, okay, well, Zuko, why would you want to pick Misery? You're going to have much less AoE. Well, that's because they've changed some of the other AoE options. Let me take a look at them. The biggest notable change, I think, has got to be Shadow Crash. So Shadow Crash now does a substantial amount of damage to the target, 12.3k to all targets within 8 yards, and it applies Vampiric Touch to 4 enemies. And if you combine that with Misery, it also applies Shadow Word Pain to them. And your Shadow Word Pain lasts 5 seconds. Okay, so this is very, very cool. It looks something like this. You can see I'm just going to press Shadow Crash. There it goes. Boom. I have all my dots in one GCD. I just put 8 dots out on one GCD. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 dots in one GCD. This is like the most efficient AoE button that Shadow Priest now has. It's insane. And of course, you can modify what's going on with Shadow Crash in terms of the Shadow Word Pain and the Vampiric Touch stuff. You can modify it with other talents. So, for example, over here now, we have Tormented Spirits. Your Shadow Word Pain damage has a 5% chance to create a Shadowy Apparition. And if you crit, it's a 10% chance, right? Or you could pick Auspicious Spirits, which makes you Shadow, you can do that if you want. But if you want to do this Shadow Word Pain stuff, you can do it that way. You can also take Shadowy Insight, where Shadow Word Pain periodic damage resets the remaining cooldown on Mind Blast and causes your Mind Blast to be instant. So you can also do that as well. And if you're doing a Mindbender build, you might really want to do Shadowy Insight. I don't have it currently talented right now. So that's, again, other options for AoE. You've got Shadow Crash that adds Vampiric Touch, which will then, of course, add Shadow Word Pain because you have Misery. That's the combo there. Mindseer is still here as an AoE option, but it's a spender have your head in the sand for the last couple weeks, it's now a spender. So you can press Mindseer, but you have to build up a lot of insanity, at least 75 insanity, before you press this button, or it doesn't really feel like it's worth pressing at all. It does a lot of damage, but you have to be careful. You have to wait really until you build up your insanity. So that's another AoE button that you have. Down here, you've got Death Speaker, which says Shadow Word Pain damage has a chance to reset the cooldown on Shadow Word Death, and it does more damage. Below that, you've got Pain and Death, where it increases the damage of Shadow Word Death even further, and Shadow Word Death cleaves 40% of its damage to all targets affected by Shadow Word Pain. That is very substantial. Over here on the Shadow Word Death stuff in the class tree, You can get Death and Madness, where if it fails to kill its target, its cooldown is reset, which means you get to double dip on the Shadow Word Death damage over here, where you can press it right away and it'll cleave, and if it doesn't kill the enemy, you can press it again right away and it cleaves again. So more AoE damage, and this is a very important talent on the class side. Shadow Word Death deals 75% less damage to you. It's a very good quality of life talent because it allows you to just freely spam Shadow Word Death in this kind of moment, right? Pain and Death plus Death and Madness allows you to get 2 Shadow Word Deaths out, which is very cool, and it's going to cleave that damage. On top of that, another big AoE piece that coincides with Shadow Word Death is going to be Mindbender over here. Again, makes a 1-minute Shadow Fiend, and then down here you have Shadow Flame Prism. Mind Blast and Shadow Word Death cause your Shadow Fiend to teleport behind your target and slash all nearby enemies for 5k, and every time you do that, you increase the duration of Mindbender. So, again, the combo here is you pop something like Void Eruption, which is going to give you 2 charges of Mind Blast. You go Mind Blast, Shadow Word Death, Shadow Word Death. Because, again, you can cast Shadow Word Death twice if it doesn't kill the enemy because of Death and Madness. So you immediately get 4 procs of Shadow Flame Prism off of your Mindbender, and, again, that is more AoE damage. Finally, for AoE, you've got Psychic Link, which says your Mind Blast and your Mind Spike, yes, it includes your Mind Spike now, will cleave 30% of their damage to all targets affected by Vampiric Touch. And remember, Shadow Crash can infect 4 enemies with Vampiric Touch. You can also manually add Vampiric Touch if you want to, but generally speaking, you can just go Shadow Crash into Mind Blast, Mind Spike, and it's going to cleave that damage for you with Psychic Link. So I think, like, it's really like a pick your poison kind of thing. Yes, Searing Nightmare is gone, thank God, and Blizzard has added in no shortage of AoE options for Shadow Priest. You can do Misery, which adds Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch, right? Plus Shadow Crash, that's going to add all 8 dots like I showed. You can cleave with Shadow Word Death, and you can do it at least twice before it goes on cooldown. Then you can do Shadow Flame Prism damage from Shadow Word Death and Mind Blast. You're going to trigger that with Void Eruption, getting extra Mind Blast charges. You can cleave damage with Psychic Link, with Mind Spike and Mind Blast. And on top of that, you have bigger options down here with, like, Idol of N'Zoth, which is the damage dealt by Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague is a 20% chance to apply Echoing Void, which is another AoE thing. Each time Echoing Void is applied, it has a chance to collapse, dealing shadow damage to all nearby enemies until no stacks remain. Again, more AoE damage. You have Mind Seer, which is just standard AoE damage. So, guys, there is no shortage of AoE options here. There is so many options for AoE. You get to pick and choose whatever you want. You're going to mix and match sort of all of these, okay? There is an option, which is what I did in the dungeon I'm going to show you in a second. There's an option to just never take Mind Seer, which is kind of cool. If you really hate standing and channeling, you can do that. You can take an option that never takes Mind Seer, and it allows you to cleave your damage with, like, Psychic Link, Shadow Word Death, Mindbender, Mind Spike, yada yada, and it'll make you very mobile. It sort of gives you this extra mobility because you're kind of moving around, hitting, like, instant cast Mind Spike from Surge of Darkness into a Mind Blast, which can be instant cast because of Mind Melt. So you can go, like, you do Shadow Crash, which is instant. It puts all your dots up. Then you're doing Mind Spike, Mind Blast. Those are cleaving with Psychic Link. Then you summon your Mind Bender, and then you go Void Eruption, and you're going instant Mind Blast, Shadow Word Death. That triggers 4 Shadow Flame Prisms. All of your dots are echoing with Idol of N'Zoth, and you're getting instant cast Surge of Darkness. You're kind of just moving around, instantly casting all these spells. It feels really, really cool. And it's going to look something like this. Let me show you what it looks like really quickly. Then we're going to get to the dungeon, and I will show you some of the damage from this build. So this is a build that does not take Mind Seer. This is the non-Mind Seer build, and it's going to look something like this. Here it comes. We're going to go stealth. Here we go. We're going to summon this guy. Void Eruption. Here we go. Big damage from our Mindbender. Shadow Word Death. Oh, I did Psychic Scream. That was a mistake. Okay. Again, my spender is Devouring Plague. I'm just putting Devouring Plague damage out there. And I'm pressing Mind Spike. And it's reducing the cast time of Mind Blast. There, my Shadow Crash is back again. It puts all my dots up. This is only on 4 targets, guys, so remember that. You're never pressing Mind Seer. You don't even have Mind Seer. The only time you have to stand and cast something is usually mind games. Everything else is instant, and I can move around like this. And I'm summoning Auspicious Spirits, which is really cool. I'm getting the Echoing Void, which is really, really cool. I'm waiting for Mindbender to come back. That'll be really good. So he's about 10 seconds away right now. Okay, again, I'm just moving around, guys. Look at this. Look at how mobile this is. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, we're going to do this. Into this. And then we're going to go Mindbender into... Oh, that was a bad Mindbender timing. Mind Blast into Shadow Word Death. There we go. There's a couple procs on our Mindbender. I'll get another proc on Mindbender for Mind Blast here in a second. Right now. Oh, I got a Shadow Word Death proc. That's for my Mindbender. Very, very good. He's doing extra damage. And we're moving around. We're moving. All of our Vampiric Touches fell off, unfortunately. So you might have to reapply them manually if you want to. But again, you can always just get an application from your Shadow Crash, which is probably how you're likely going to do it. So that's kind of how that looks, guys. Okay? It's so mobile because you're constantly getting procs on Mind Spike. Mind Spike is cleaving its damage because of Psychic Link. Mind Blast is cleaving its damage on Psychic Link. Your Mindbender gets all of its damage from your Mind Blast and Shadow Word Deaths, which have a chance to, reset each other. I would definitely want to talent into Shadowy Insight with this particular build. I'd have to take a point out somewhere else. I don't know where I would do it, but I do want my periodic damage to be giving me my Mind Blast back, because when my Mindbender is up and I press Mind Blast, he does a big AoE slash. But you can see this is kind of how the build looks, and this is the damage that it's going to look like. Your Mindbender is doing a gigaload of damage. He's doing 4% down here, 8%. That's 12.5%. Of my damage. So he's way up here. He's my second highest damage. Just my Mindbender. Shadow Crash does a lot of damage on its own. It's adding my dots for me. Again, guys, this is only 4 targets. We would have had way more damage. There's the Echoing Void damage, which is this capstone down here. That's just all the little damage that's happening from my dots. Pain and Death is my Shadow Word Death cleave, right? Psychic Link is the cleave. There's all my AoE damage right there, guys. You can see that's kind of how it works out. Let me jump over to the video really quick, and I don't want to take forever on this. So let's jump over here and check this out. I just wanted to really emphasize how the damage looks so you guys can really see it in action. And I think it's quite strong. This is the opening section of... All right, we're just getting thrown in the middle of it. Yeah, I actually just got teleported right into the middle of this dungeon. But this is the opening section of Brackenhide Hollow. I am going to skip ahead here. I just want to say a few things while I'm killing mobs right here. This build feels quite strong with the Mindbender talents with Shadow Prism. There's a huge quality of life feature. You take 75% less damage from Shadow Word Death, which, of course, you want to press Shadow Word Death as many times as possible because you want to be triggering that for your Mindbender. There's some really big AoE damage coming up here on the on-screen, so just check this out while I keep talking. Your Mind Blast and Mind Spike are cleaving really, really well, which is awesome. The only real big skill check here is, like you just saw, throwing out your Shadow Crash. Sometimes you can miss your Shadow Crash, and if you do miss it, that's a big problem. So you have to be very careful that you don't miss your Shadow Crash. My damage meter was on the wrong thing here. I'm going to change it in a second. There we go, current segment. You can see we're doing about 42k right now on 6 targets. So the damage is substantial, guys. It is substantial. When you press your cooldowns on Shadow Priest, it feels so friggin' good, man. When you press Void Eruption, when you press Mindbender, you feel like a god. You feel like you're just getting in there and absolutely blasting stuff. So here's another AoE one. I'll show you in a second. Back it up a little bit. Right here. We get all the dots rolling with Shadow Crash. Again, the ability for Shadow Crash to add 8 dots with 1 GCD cannot be overstated how important that is. That is a substantial amount of damage for you to be able to add. You're going to get all the shadowy apparitions flying out. You can see them right here, and I'm just cleaving with Mind Spike right now. I did take Shadow Word Insanity, or Mind Flay Insanity, sorry. That's a buff on the talent tree where every time you press Devouring Plague, it transforms Mind Flay into Mind Flay Insanity, which just does 80% more damage. So that's kind of really cool. It's really, really good for single target. It's an amazing 1-point talent to take for single target damage in a dungeon setting. So also, Shadow Priest just feels really fun to play, honestly, and it has some good defensives now. Lots of sustain, and you have Dispersion. You have Shadow Power Word Shield. You've got extra healing on the talent. You've got, obviously, Vampiric Embrace. There's a lot of really good ways for you to sustain. Even Mind Games is a huge amount of healing, which sometimes people don't understand. So, look at the head here. Somebody was just doing a bug report. Here's some more AoE damage. Again, we're in our big cooldown right here. Void Eruption. My Shadow Flame is out. Look at this. 50k, guys. We spiked at 50k there. Every time I press Shadow Word Death and Mind Blast, my Mindbender is doing that big swipe. So we're back up to 50k again You can see it right there. So this is good damage. This is very, very good damage. This is exactly where I would expect Shadow Priest, where I would hope Shadow Priest to be. All the other specs I've been playing, guys, have had basically these really, really big spikes in AoE where we're getting from like 35 to 50k damage. That is the window that I've seen on Outlaw Rogue, on my Enhancement Shaman, on, not Warrior. What else did I play? I played something else. I can't remember all the things I've played so far, but you guys have seen the stuff that I've been playing. There's definitely been that kind of window where it's like 35k to 50k AoE, sometimes higher if you get a really, really big spike. Again, here's another big AoE. I pop Vampiric Embrace. Watch my healing go up here in the bottom corner here. I'm up to 1k now, 1.3, 1.6, 1.8, 2.1k healing. Like, we're 3.3k. Pretty good. We're up to 4, 5k. We're almost healing as much as the healer. 6k. Vampiric Embrace is insane. Really, really good utility. We actually passed the healer on healing right there. Really, really cool stuff. So I love that extra utility that a Shadow Priest can bring. Okay, let's go to the boss fight. 735. Bum, bum, bum. This is the first boss fight here. Again, this is really good boss for us because it's got 3 targets. We can just throw down Shadow Crash and get all 3 of our hots rolling. Okay, here we go. Boom. Into Mind Games, into Mindbender. Get those slashes going. We're doing 28k. Very, very good. This is where Mind Flay Insanity can actually come in. One talent that I've taken here as well is that when I channel Mind Flay on a target, it actually increases the duration of my dots on that target. So that's very, very cool. And I actually learned that I was testing it on the dummies. If you take Mind Seer and you channel Mind Seer onto like 4 targets that have dots, it'll increase the duration of all 4 of those targets. It'll increase the duration of whatever dots you have going if you're channeling Mind Seer. So that's a powerful AoE option if you do want to do a Mind Seer build. Remember, this build that I'm doing is not the Mind Seer build. This is kind of the more mobile, more it focuses on Devouring Plague, on cleaving damage with Psychic Link, all that stuff, right? So you can see we're doing like 30k boss damage here. Pretty solid, guys. Pretty solid overall. And I'm really, again, enjoying Shadow Priest. Let me jump ahead here once again. We're going to go right to the Treemouth boss fight. And I want to show on the Treemouth boss fight 1530. There it is right there. Can't look past my mic. Bum-ba-dum. This is Treemouth. This guy's like my favorite looking guy in the expansion so far. Again, the mobility of this build is really nice. He's going to spawn a bunch of ads here in a second. And they're going to like... He's going to do it right over there. The the Evoker guy does a really good job there. I try to get some value out of my Shadow Crash. I kind of miss it there. But then it's okay. He starts devouring somebody. Then I get the Decay Spray on me, and the ads are right next to me. So I need to move because they're gonna come after me. I end up fearing them right here. Boom, there you go. They're all feared. And I can continue moving. Again, the mobility of this build, I want to really highlight that. It's really, really cool. You can see my Mind Flay Insanity. I want to show you another thing right here. My Mind Flay Insanity buff is actually running out right now, and I'm channeling Mind Flay Insanity right now. One thing I realized is that you can use the Mind Flay Insanity proc whenever you want. You can use it at the very end of the proc. Watch this. My Mind Flay Insanity buff is going to dissipate on the top bar there. It's at 0 seconds. Okay, it's gone. My Mind Flay Insanity is gone. I'm still channeling Mind Flay Insanity, so it doesn't revert you back to regular Mind Flay, even though there's regular Mind Flay on my bar again. If you cash in on the proc, even at the very last second of when you get that proc, you can still get a full channel of Mind Flay Insanity. That is really cool to me. It gives you more versatility with the skill. So you can basically like get the proc on Mind Flay Insanity, which you do by pressing Devouring Plague, and then you can use the proc on Mind Flay Insanity at the very, very end of the channel. You can see it's just a very, very cool... I like the way that they've designed that. I think that's very good. So there we go. We did about 17k on that boss fight. Let's keep moving ahead here. Gutshot, 2115. Mr. Gutshot himself. This fight, again, you're looking to trap the hyenas as best you can once he puts the traps out. So there's 2 traps right there. You're going to see they're going to get trapped in a second here. I try to move the traps over here because it looks like the hyenas are going to spawn behind me. I think the hyenas are going to spawn behind me, and they're going to run towards the boss. So I'm trying to channel this here. Again, we're doing 28k on a single target boss fight, basically. Pretty happy with those numbers right now. Here comes the hyenas. I've tried to bait the traps so that they'll run into them, and sure enough, they run right into them over here on the left-hand side of your screen. So that's kind of how I think you want to do this fight. I don't really know for sure, but again, I'm happy with the damage of Shadow Priest here. Looking really good. We did about 23, 24K on that boss fight. Really, really good. Let's go to 2225. Actually, let's skip ahead to 2505. Some big AoE damage here I want to show you. So here we go. Watch this. The tank was bugging out pretty hard here. So I got all my cooldowns here. We go Shadow Crash. I aim it perfectly. Then I go Void Eruption with my Mindbender out. And here comes the damage. Boom, boom. 41, 43K, 44, 45, 46. Really awesome damage. 50K. We're almost keeping up with the Feral Druid. 53K AoE right there. Big, big damage coming out of this build. And again, I can sort of move while casting. I really enjoy this, guys. I think it's really, really cool. I'm not even playing this very well. Like, this would be a lot better if I was playing this really well. So let's go to 2855, and we will see the final boss. The final boss is pretty annoying for casters because he puts down this cloud, choking rot something, and there goes the cloud. You can see the cloud moving around. It's very annoying because it means I have to constantly keep moving. Now, this totem will spawn as well, and you need to deal with this totem. Watch my Mind Games damage on this totem. This totem's going to channel Rotting Burst, and that puts a stack on all of us, and then the boss will, like, consume those stacks later. So you need to deal with this totem right away. Mind Games is going to nuke this totem right now. Boom! It almost goes down to half just from Mind Games. It actually basically died to Mind Games, which I was like, that's awesome. So it's actually really cool if you can have, like, some priority DPS abilities available for these totems on this fight. It's very important. There's another Rotten Burst totem. There it is. I try to get my dots on it with Shadow Crash. Really, Shadow Priest is not the class to be dealing with the totems because I have a lot of damage over time, right? So it's kind of like really bad that way. But you can see he just did his big burst ability. If we had had several stacks, we all only have one stack right now of the debuff. If we had like 2 or 3 stacks because we were just ignoring the totems, if we had like 4 or 5 stacks, we would have died to this. Literally, you would just die to this cast. He does it right now. Decaying Strength. That's what he does. Boom. We have 0 stacks of the buff, so it does no damage to us. But if we have like 3, 4, 5 stacks, you'll take 80% of your health. So, again, here comes the totem. Here comes the cloud. You have to make sure you deal with it. And that's the boss fight there. Very annoying for casters, but for this build, for this Shadow Priest build, it does feel like I have a lot of mobility. And so I'm less, you know, stuck in place, which I think is very, very significant and allows me to deal with this fight a lot better. So there you go. I do think I press on the overall damage here. Yeah, I think we did 22K overall. 21.8. Is that right? Yeah. Let me look at that again. So we do about 22K overall. And again, I just did a dungeon on my Outlaw Rogue, and I was doing about 22K overall, 22.5. So I think Shadow Priest is actually within the realm of DPS that they should be. Some other classes are just really overpowered right now, like the Evoker doing 10K more than everybody else is a little bit too much. And then obviously there's been Demon Hunters that are doing like, you know, 60K overall in a dungeon. But you can see my damage breakdown here, guys, is we got Vampiric Touch, Shadow, those are our dots. We got Shadow Crash doing a ton of upfront damage. Dying Plague, Mind Blast, Shadow, and then the Shadow Flame Prism from my Mindbender. Very, very, very strong. There's my Mind Flay Insanity dot. That's just me pressing my single target Mind Flay when it's buffed. Did 4% of my damage. Very, very good. Psychic Link, Cleave. Awesome stuff here. So I really enjoy the Shadow Priest build, and I think it's quite strong. This is, again, the more mobile, more instant cast. You're focusing on cleaving damage with Psychic Link from Mind Spike and Mind Blast. You're trying to do Shadow Crash to add all your dots on everybody. Then you're popping Void Eruption with your Mindbender so that you can do Mind Blast, Shadow Red Death, and he will cleave. He'll do his Shadow Flame Prism damage. You can see it. Obviously, it did a lot of damage at the top here, 8% of my damage overall. So that's the build. We're not taking Mind Seer, which, again, there is a build for Mind Seer I'm going to work on. I'm going to look into it a little bit more. But this is just, I wanted to show you guys this more instant cast build in the dungeon. And it did about 22K overall in the dungeon. That's a very good number. That's perfectly fine for Shadow Priest. And I think it's looking really, really good for Shadow Priest in general. I mean, Shadow Priest at the beginning of an expansion with no stats and when all the mobs die really quickly, that's like the worst time for Shadow Priest. So this was actually a very promising test, in my opinion, because technically, I should have done really bad here, and I think we did okay. So Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Are you looking forward to Shadow Priest? What do you think about the changes to AoE for Shadow Priest in particular? I'm looking at the change from Searing Nightmare into a build that might look something more like this. What do you think about this? What do you think about all the changes to Shadow Priest in general? I would love to hear the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you want to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, that really does help me out a lot, guys. It helps me out with the algorithm and all that stuff. So thank you once again. I love you all. I'll see you in the next one.